Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Artificial Intelligence in Scientific Publishing webinar. I'm Pedro Ramirez, and I'm the editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Gynecological Cancer. Today, we have this really exciting opportunity to discuss a very relevant and updated topic as it pertains to artificial intelligence. And obviously, artificial intelligence is impacting all of us at many levels, and particularly in the field of healthcare, um, our input in terms of clinical care for our patients, in terms of our training of our trainees. It's an arena where artificial intelligence is already very, very prevalent. Obviously, the point of interest to this topic and to us in the journal is how does artificial intelligence now impact scientific publishing? So we're going to talk about opportunities, disruptions, and responsibilities of artificial intelligence. And to that end, we have put together a really fantastic group of panelists, and they're ranging from all different areas within the academic path in the trajectory of medical care of our patients. We have first Dr. Rene Pareja, who is the incoming editor-in-chief of the International Journal of Gynecological Cancer. Rene Pareja is from Colombia, and we're really very, very excited to hear his opinions about how artificial intelligence will impact the journal as we move forward. So, Rene, thank you so much for taking part in this discussion, and welcome and congratulations again for being the selected new editor-in-chief for the International Journal of Gynecological Cancer.
Thanks, Pedro, for the invitation and for having me.
Excellent. Next on the panel is Behrouz Zand. Behrouz Zand is representing a researcher and clinician. He is with us here at Houston Methodist. He's with the Division Director of Gynecologic Oncology at the Willowbrook campus of the Houston Methodist Hospital. Behrouz has had additional training in artificial intelligence in healthcare at MIT, and certainly he has worked on large language models that are applicable to patient care, patient education, and surgery. Behrouz, we're really excited to have you take part of this panel as well.
Thank you, Pedro. Great to be here. Thank you.
Excellent. Um, Next on our panel is Alex Melamed, researcher, clinician, biostatistician, methodologist. Again, really impressive academic and trajectory in his academic productivity. Alex Melamed is gynecologic oncology. He's a surgeon and a clinical investigator at the Massachusetts General Hospital and Harvard Medical School. Alex, thank you so much for joining us, and I'm really excited to have you take part in this discussion as well.
Thanks for having me.
Excellent. And next on our panel is Niandou Touré. Niandou is coming to us from Elsevier. Niandou is the publisher of our journal. Niandou has been incredibly helpful in terms of how we navigate through the introduction of artificial intelligence in scientific writing, publishing, reviewing. So we're really looking forward to hear from the journal's perspective as to how artificial intelligence is being integrated as well. So Niandou, welcome.
Thank you so much, Pedro. It's an honor for me to be with you.
Excellent. And then lastly on our panel, we're really excited to also have Dr. Teresa who represents the researcher, the clinician, and also a trainee. So we're really excited. She's at the Medical University of Vienna. Teresa, thank you so much for joining us. She was also a former fellow of the International Journal of Gynecological Cancer. So we're really, again, very excited to hear your thoughts and perspective as it comes from an author, a trainee, and a researcher.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
Excellent. So one of the things also I would like to announce is that we're celebrating at the International Journal of Gynecological Cancer just yesterday. We received the new impact factor 5.4. So we're really very, very excited. I want to thank again all of the members of our team, the associate editors, the editorial boards, the current fellows in the journal, former fellows in the journal, all of the authors, all of you who have joined, who have submitted your work to our journal, and then of course, obviously, our societies, ESGO and IGCS as well. and our publisher, Elsevier. So again, a really exciting time, a time to celebrate in our journal. So with that, let's get into this topic. Let's talk about artificial intelligence in scientific publishing. So obviously, artificial intelligence really has become one of the most disruptive forces in scientific publishing since the internet itself. And there's many connotations, many technologies and innovation as it pertains to artificial intelligence, large language models, and we're really excited to hear some of the opinions from our panelists as it pertains to these topics. So on this, I'll start with some of the opening provocations and questions to our panelists, and I'll start with a question that I would love to hear from both Niandou and from Behrouz with regards to should AI assisted writing be disclosed? And I'd love for Niandou to start, obviously, from the perspective of a publisher at Elsevier. What are the rules? Should AI assisted publishing and writing be disclosed?
Okay, thank you so much for Pedro, for this question, Pedro. From the publisher's perspective, it is essential to be transparent. So transparency is essential whenever generative AI is used during manuscript preparation. So authors may use AI during their work, and we are going to have the opportunity today to specify in which conditions, but it's essential to say when they use it. Because the readers, the reviewers, and you editors should be informed when AI is used, because sometimes we can mix, we may not be clear on why we are trying to detect AI. It's not the use of AI that constitutes a problem, but the way we use it. And once there's transparency, we can protect and make sure that the data and science we produce is quality.
Excellent. Behrouz, any thoughts and anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think when it comes to disclosure, it's not really a simple yes or no question. It really scales with how much AI does for you. So, AI can do simple things like grammar check. There's an app called Grammarly. That's an AI app. I don't think that necessarily needs to be disclosed, but I think if you're using AI to, for example, draft your discussion, yes, of course, I think that should be disclosed. And, like Niandou said, this is pretty much subtle. I think many journals now require a declaration of generative AI to be included when you do submit your manuscript. I think, people kind of skip a couple of things. One is when you use AI, your ownership becomes really not yours. The U.S. Copyright Office actually doesn't protect AI-generated text. So the more an author uses AI to write their IP or have their writing, the less they own. So if someone copyrights it, they can't get, you can't go and try to defend it. And the other is, the disclosure works only if it's fair and if it's not punished, and that there's no bias towards it. So, if you have someone who's an honest discloser, they may have more negative, might get marked down as opposed to someone who hides it because, they'll get through without, having to worry about, maybe getting punished for using AI. So I think that's important as well. But yeah, I think overall, it just depends on how much of it you use and what specifically you're using it for. And of course, if you're using it pretty substantially for your writing, yes, you should disclose it. But for simple things like grammar stuff, I don't think that's necessarily disclosed.
Great. So that's a great start. And I just wanted to add one additional question. And Niandou, this is likely more for you. The authors who say, well, do they have a way of telling if I used AI? How about if I just don't disclose it? Will they be able to check on me and tell me that I used AI?
Yeah, thank you so much for this question because I think what I didn't say is that the key principle here is accountability. When authors use AI while writing a paper, they have to let you as editor and reviewers know because disclosure helps maintain a kind of trust in the process of scientific publishing. But of course, it's a very interesting question, and maybe that's something else we should add. Elsevier and all the other publishers, they are just trying to navigate in a domain where things are changing very fast. So this our policy has been updated on June the 1st, and I guess it will be updated in a few weeks also. So we are trying to find a way to give answers. And what is at stake here is the stake of is trust in scientific publishing. So of course, yesterday an EIC sent the manuscript with me, and she suspected the use of AI, and I had to explain that using AI is not the problem. How, and what we use it for is the problem. So, yeah.
Yeah, so excellent discussion on this first topic. I'd like to actually also now turn over to Rene Pareja. Rene, you're in Colombia. Many times we have heard in the past, when before AI was there, investigators saying, I have some really good data. I have a good study. When I write it, my language is not ideal and often gets rejected just because of the language. So therefore, there is a certain level of inequity in terms of the access to publication. So do you think AI will widen those inequities or democratize science?
Thank you, Pedro, for a very interesting question. I think both, because AI can help in democratizing science by several ways, lowering language and writing barriers, and this can help non-native English speakers in drafting the manuscript and even drafting writing grants, lowering technical barriers because providing automated literature synthesis protocols and code templates, helping researchers with limited mentorship of resources, speeds dissemination and educations, enables scalable data analysis. All of those things can be aid to democratize science in low-income settings. But also, it can, at the same time, widen inequities because the leading AI models and compute are controlled by well-funded institutions and companies. Access often requires paying for that, cloud credits or institutional partnerships, data bias and representation, the quality and credibility risk, because ECA drafting might flood, and this is one of major risks, flood the journals with low value outputs, privileging those who can iterate and pay for editing and polishing. So I think it can be both. AI can be a powerful equalizer if deliberate steps ensure wide, affordable access, representative data, robust validation, and ethical governance. Otherwise, it risks reinforcing the existing advantages for those who are richer.
Excellent. So I turned now to Alex. And Alex, obviously, you are a tough reviewer. You are very critical of methodology, particularly. And that's why we value you again so much in the journal for your contribution as an associate editor as well. Can AI improve the quality of the manuscripts, or will we see a flooding of journals with mediocre work?
Yeah, I mean, I think it really depends, like everyone has said, on how the authors choose to engage with the AI, right? I think that AI has the capacity to massively improve the quality of manuscripts. I think one of the things that's always very challenging in clinical research is when it is led by clinicians who often are the people with the correct clinical questions, the people with the access to the data or the samples, but frequently not the people with the methodological expertise. And there's this loop that happens where you need to explain to your statistician what it is you're trying to do. You need them to understand. You need to make sure you're on the same page. And frequently, this is a slow and iterative process when a clinician is working with a methodologist, and it's frustrating. It's frequently expensive, right? Because everyone's time is valuable. And so I think it is often short-circuited because, people are frustrated or they don't have the resources or they they just want to get it done. And I think that one of the things that AI is pretty good at is knowing the modern statistical literature, right? And so you can have a conversation with AI about pitfalls, shortcomings, and I think that, is it as good as, your PhD methodologist? No, right? But the question isn't, is it as good as your PhD methodologist? The question is it going to improve from where we are today? And I think you and I both know that when we look at the quality of the manuscripts and the lack of attention frequently that is paid to issues of confounding, issues of temporal biases, right? AI will massively improve this if authors say, hey, critique this, give me some advice. What can I do better? What can I disclose? What are some of the limitations in this? I think there's a huge potential for improvement.
Excellent. So then now we turn to Teresa. And Teresa, obviously, you're a clinician, you're a researcher, you're obviously training as well. You often get invitations to review manuscripts. So how do you fit all of these things into a schedule, right? And oftentimes the reviews can take sometimes hours, for many, sometimes even days. Um, wouldn't it be easier just putting the paper through AI and having AI just review the paper for you? So the question is, will peer review itself become AI assisted in your mind?
So thank you very much for this question. And I think it's actually more fraught than it appears at first. And as you said, as a young researcher, it sometimes takes hours for a review. And the more you're experienced, the quicker you would be, but the less time you also have to actually do reviews. So I think one thing I struggle with and which I would never do is to upload a paper to an AI, also because of a legal issue, because we get entrusted with a, a manuscript, and neither the journal nor the author allowed us to upload this to a third-party model. So this is something which definitely should not happen. But there are, I would say, two main aspects where I'm going to be transparent on this. Recently, I started to use AI. And one is to get literary background, especially if it's a topic where I'm not super up to date. And then I ask AI and ask, okay, what are the latest topics? What are the more controversial data about this topic? So basically just the title of the new manuscript. And that's really helpful, I think, sometimes. And the other thing I recently started to do, which is also good, is while taking the notes, I write them down in basic English just for me to know what I was thinking of. And then I last time I tried for the first time to put the notes through AI just to be more structured, to improve the flow, to be sure that the message gets to the author about what I want to say. And so these are two aspects. So I think probably right now peer review are already AI assisted at some level, but I hope and I think we're not getting to the AI doing the whole review.
Yeah, no, I mean that really opens up a lot of perspective with regards to the peer review process, and thank you for articulating that so concisely as it pertains to what are some great ways of using AI for peer review. And one of the things that we emphasize in the fellowship is actually how to communicate back to the authors, and we put a lot of emphasis in how we should frame the questions to the authors. So I think again, it's a great utility as you mentioned, and thank you for highlighting that. So again, great opening to the webinar. I also wanted to remind those who are assisting in the webinar that you can write in questions in the chat, and hopefully we'll be able to get to those questions as well. So then now, let's talk about a little bit as a writing assistant. And we touched on this a little bit before, but you mentioned that it can be used to a great way of summarizing the literature. Just tell me what is important about this particular topic that I'm either going to be writing about or I'm going to be reviewing. Rene mentioned the utility for those that are non-English speaking for grammar and style improvement. Some to just create the abstract following all of this data that has been gathered. Some would question actually drafting the introduction, the full discussion. But definitely translation support for non-native English speaker also a potential benefit. So given that frame, let's talk a little bit about some key discussion questions pertaining to AI as a writing assistant. I'll start with you again, Teresa, and ask, where does AI generally improve your scientific writing or that of your colleagues?
So I actually agree on what you talked about earlier with Rene. So I think the barrier that has always been there for non-native English-speaking people now is lower. And that's something which is probably fair because the ideas and the numbers are the same and the language gap should be overcome in some way. There's again the question, how much information would you upload to get just the fluidity or the grammar check that, well, it's another topic of itself. Another aspect is probably to reduce redundancy. Sometimes you have the feeling when you read the papers, okay, we're repeating the same thing, or to get it in the right numbers of words, like if depending on the journal or the congress you're submitting and you're saying, okay, please adapt my abstract to these new numbers of words without missing any information. And another aspect I recently got kind of enthusiastic about is the table designs. So AI is really good if we do a super basic table and just say, okay, graphically or double check the numbers. Does everything sum up to 100% or yeah, the graphical part. So I think this is where it generally helps and improves the quality in my opinion.
Yeah, no, I'm really glad you mentioned these points because I was thinking back. One of the things that we again teach in the fellowship is that every author should learn how to take an abstract that is 1,200 words to 500 words. And in the past, I can see that, this was a process that often was a day or two, and you would get it, you get that abstract back from the fellow or the trainee a day or two later.
Mhm.
These days, when I say the same command and I say, you know what, one of the great things about learning is to actually take it from 1,000 words to 500 words and let me see your best chance and effort at it. And it comes back to me within the next 5 minutes.
Mhm.
And I'm
I
like,
know.
wait a minute. How much effort was actually placed into doing this? So with that, then I'm going to turn to Niandou, obviously representing Elsevier, representing the journal. Next question, and I think we talked about some of the acceptable uses of AI, but today, as that you know line gets grayer and grayer with regards to what's unacceptable, um, what would you say are definite unacceptables from the journal's perspective on use of AI today?
Thank you so much for this question, Pedro. And Elsevier distinguishes between supportive use of AI and substitute use of AI. That's the main difference. So to be more precise, acceptable uses include summarizing literature, organizing manuscript structure, improving the language and readability, just like the example Teresa gave earlier, generating ideas at some point and assisting with certain explanatory figures. But what we can't do is generating substantial scientific content, and that's what I was trying to say during one of our meetings when discussing with Alex. I was saying that we can't delegate the human part of the work, the central reflection. So delegating the creation of substantial scientific content with genuine intellectual contribution from the authors. We can't fabricate data and references. We shouldn't alter research results, and we shouldn't create primary research images that purport to represent actual experimental findings. So the fundamental principle here is that AI can support authors. It cannot replace authorship. It cannot replace accountability or scientific judgment. We just want researchers to keep being researchers while using it as a supportive tool.
So with that, and extending a little bit beyond that, Niandu,
Mm, mm,
when a researcher has written their paper
mm,
and they're working on perhaps the conclusion of that paper, either in the abstract or in the text of the manuscript,
mm.
is it acceptable to say, take my conclusion and make it so that it will have the highest possibility of getting accepted into the International Journal of Gynecologic Oncology, frame it in language, in text, in scientific approach, make it newsworthy? Is that acceptable?
Yeah, the line is really gray, and this is something Alex pointed out during the same meeting. So this seems to be acceptable because I just said it was okay to create ideas. So at some point, since you are the main author of the main ideas and the text, asking for the your AI tool to help just um, giving a direction to a conclusion may be acceptable.
Excellent. So, turning over to you, Behrouz, and actually also Alex, if you would like to offer your thoughts on this, is AI editing different from using a medical writer? And of course, many times, this was for many years, and this is particularly for industry manuscripts, where clearly the person that wrote the entire manuscript was not often a physician, somebody not related to the article or the study at all. It was just somebody that you hired to write the manuscript for you. Is AI different from that? So I'll start with Rene.
Uh,
I'm
Thank you,
sorry,
Pedro.
with Behrouz.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I mean, I think there's a
go
lot
ahead.
of overlap, between that medical writers and these AI large language models. One is you need to disclose both, right? I mean, even the medical writer goes in the acknowledgments, and neither can be the author. And a human stays in the loop for both cases. So the researchers are in the loop for both cases. But I think where they differ are really on three things. One is the scope, right? So, a medical writer, they do intellectual work. They can even earn authorship, if they meet certain criteria. But an AI can't. It's a language model. That's full stop. And so when it's writing your science, it's no longer editing. Um, and the other is the failure that comes with large language models and the hallucinations, right? So if it invents citations, that's a huge problem. And so a huge burden comes on the author to verify what that AI has written. And the third is really the access. And I think this is the really kind of important part. A medical writer can cost thousands of dollars, and AI essentially is free. And it can do your medical writing. So I think that's the one big advantage for certain researchers who maybe don't have thousands of dollars to drop on a medical writer to use AI as their medical writer.
Yeah. So, and Alex, actually, as a follow-up to some of the things that Behrouz mentioned, with regards to the hallucination and with regards to the inventing citations, there are some who might say, well, I thought that was something that was a problem in the beginning, but now the AI models and the platforms are so good that I don't think that they do any citations. Often I hear, well, yeah, you get citations with ChatGPT, but not with Claude, and particularly if you get the more expensive platform of Claude. And, some other authors may even say, so what if it makes up a citation? How many times will a reviewer read a citation? I'm not advocating for that, but what if that's the claim?
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a really, I think like there's a lot of really important philosophical questions here, and like I don't want to get too woo-woo about it, but I think like there is, to me, like what Behrouz said about it's not doing intellectual work, I kind of disagree with that. Like, I think it's clearly doing intellectual work, or it's doing work it would take human intelligence to do. But what it's not doing, but I also agree very much with what Behrouz says, is it's just a model. It's just a statistical model on a computer. It has no intentionality, right? And so in the end, what it does is it presents an author, right, with a very powerful tool, but as with any powerful tool, an enormous responsibility, right? And so, these things are going to fail. Just like if you told your fellow to write a manuscript, you couldn't hand it in and not read it, right? You have, as a senior author in that case, a responsibility, the ultimate responsibility to making sure that the references that the fellow put in the paper are the correct references, that they're true, that, right? In the same sense, you as the author have this responsibility. And so I think that in the end, the issues are less about, should we let people use these things for certain tasks? People will use them for all sorts of tasks. The question is, how do we make sure that in a world where people are using them, that we are verifying, that we know that there's new solutions, but there's new problems, right? And we need to be positioned to address the new problems that this is creating, because the notion that we're going to be able to control how people use this, I think is hopeful and not realistic.
Excellent. So, Rene, I wanted to, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Pedro, I want to mention that I learned that a medical writer was when visiting you in 2008, because it was completely unknown for us. We don't have medical writers or people we can hire for writing a manuscript. So artificial intelligence have become a great tool for us in order to improve our grammar, to improve our readability, to construct the phrases, to moderate the tone, because we don't have budget for paying a person for writing any manuscript.
Yeah. So to that same point, and actually, we talked a little bit about democratizing before, but I wanted to ask you, obviously for a writer, an author in Bolivia, Peru, in Africa, when they say, look, I don't have $200 to purchase the yearly fee for Claude or for ChatGPT, or are there any, are there any platforms that are available to authors in low income countries?
Yes, there are free platforms. You can use your ChatGPT or thing like that you don't have to pay for them. But my recommendation for people living and trying to produce literature from low and middle income countries is to write the manuscript by themselves, to look at the reference by themselves, to sit by themselves. And at the end, after writing an introduction, check with artificial intelligence in order to improve the quality of the things you already wrote, not to let the task to the artificial intelligence, because artificial intelligence has no the capacity to construct the knowledge. This is our capacity. This is our responsibility. AI is just a tool. It's just a privileged assistant, but it shouldn't take the command of writing anything.
Excellent. So then now we're going to get to the risks, the ethical concerns. We talked about the hallucinating references, AI citations that don't exist. We talked a little bit about fabricated data and text, that AI content often can be indistinguishable from real research. The authorship issues, we talked at, who's really responsible for the AI written content. Bias amplification and reproducing in scales existing biases. The paper mill, then now, the increased number of submissions to journals, because clearly these are all AI generated. This is particularly also an issue for commentaries, letters to the editors. And then, of course, obviously, the concerns on plagiarism, blur lines between original and AI content. So, when looking at these, I like to use this as sort of like as a frame for some of the discussions that we're going to have now. I'll start with Niandou. What are the biggest dangers that editors are already seeing?
Okay, thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you, Pedro. I think there are several concerns, and one of them is the one you just cited, paper mills, and the large-scale generation of low-quality manuscripts. And we are having more and more papers submitted in all journals, and part of these papers are presented as letters to the editors. There are factories in some countries and some group of researchers. The three other concerns I may cite is the hallucinated references, of course, and content that may not be accurate. We may have answers that do not correspond to the reality of scientific data. We also have, of course, for a publisher, the undisclosed use of AI, because we have conducted studies recently, and 58% of researchers declared using AI, and this is more than 20% more than what we had 1 year earlier in September 2024. And we are almost sure people declaring there's this under declaration, or there are even more people, researchers already using AI. So this is the third one. And maybe the fourth one is the most important. There may be breaches of confidentiality when reviewers or editors upload the manuscripts into publicly accessible AI tools. And that too has been addressed a little earlier by Teresa.
Excellent.
Mm.
And I'll turn over to Teresa now. And we have this question here as should journals mandate AI disclosure? And I think we all agree that yes, that will be the case. I wouldn't see anything that would be contrary to that as a benefit to the journal. But on a slightly different twist on that, as a clinician, as an investigator, as a trainee, would you have an issue or a problem with the fact that an author is telling you this entire manuscript was written with the help of AI? Every component of it was supported by AI. There's nothing that's fabricated, but I'm disclosing this. Your level of trust, your level of commitment to really absorbing that data and applying that data as a clinician. What are your thoughts and opinions?
Okay, this is a tough question, so I would probably appreciate the honesty. I would wonder who would approve of that. And of course, I think if it's not even specified in which form AI was used, just saying I used it in every single section of the manuscript prior, during, and afterwards, I would probably, there's not even a rational reason for it, but just out of my guts, I would say it's something that everybody would be like more restrictive about. So probably, yeah, the trust would be less, which is kind of the opposite we're trying to achieve, because we want people to disclose that they are using the AI. And I think the main topic, as also Behrouz also said, is like the granularity level. So if there's a standard to say, okay, this, and this is accepted, and then you have to really be honest on for what you use that. And ideally, it's similar in different kind of journals and not the same for every journal. But I would struggle with it. I would think about it twice, and I would look probably for a paper with the same topic which declare if they used AI on a more specific level.
Yeah, great. So I actually, for both you and for Alex Melamed, you as a consumer author, a reader of the article, and Alex, you as an associate editor, are we being unfair to AI and somewhat discriminating AI? Because we don't really ask, did you use Google? Did you use the internet to write this paper, to look at the data prior to this manuscript? So are we being unfair to an AI platform when we completely dismiss the fact that an author could have used Google or any other platform on the internet? So I'll let Alex start, and then I'll turn back to Teresa for that.
Yeah, I mean, I think maybe I'm an outlier here, but I think pretty soon it's going to be quaint to ask people to disclose if they used AI for any writing task, because the answer is going to be like, of course I did. Like, why wouldn't I? It would be ridiculous for me not to. I just think, I don't know if that's going to come 3 months from now, a year from now, or 5 years from now, but I do believe that that's the trajectory. And so I think that I think we really have to take these papers on their own merit. Like, I find that I read lots of stuff that I'm like, this reads like AI like slop, it has no spark. It doesn't show a real understanding of the field. It doesn't show like real contextual knowledge. It's got way too many M dashes. Like this is just some garbage, this isn't real. This is just whatever, right? And I think we are going to be needing to develop those skills rather than trusting that someone is going to disclose and then judging based on that.
Excellent. Tere, any additional comments?
I mean, I think it's even more embarrassing. I totally agree. I think we're already in the AI area and just like accepting it, what is already happening. I think it's even more embarrassing if you do not declare AI and it's clearly AI written, even if you just have a sense of it, because maybe there's not the tool yet, but there will be really, really soon to detect how much AI written there is. And I'm not really good in informatics or IT, but I would guess that at some points there will be some kind of filter where they say, okay, so how much word can you actually get out of this text and how much information is left? And I think at some point this will be, and then because it has to be, because I think there's so many papers being produced right now, manuscripts with AI, that you really need at some point to say, okay, get the AI out of the AI and give me the content. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's almost like, at some point there was some illegality in a math test using a calculator. And now there is no shame in anyone saying, yeah, I use a calculator to tabulate numbers. Of course I use a calculator. So I think, again, moving in that direction. I do want to get to some of the questions. I see there's some questions from the audience. I will move on to a couple of other things that I wanted to address with the panel. AI. Should journals use it for reviewer selections? I mean, there's some reviewers that are much better than others. Should we use that as a potential way of screening for better reviewers? Alex mentioned on statistical review support, reporting a quality check. Of course, for the journal, fraud detection, image manipulation. That's also an interesting topic in, looking at how do you design those images, how do you modify those images, and then the AI generated peer review as well. So we talked a little bit about the peer review quality. Any thoughts you have with regards to, and I'll turn to Alex. Um, Obviously, you as an associate editor, you get a lot of papers. You see the quality of the peer reviews, and you know that there's some peer reviews that, let's just say it, they're terrible. Um, could an author be better served by just saying, well, instead of sending it to somebody who's going to give you a really terrible review, and not terrible in terms of reject or accept, but terrible in terms of quality, versus let me actually give you a really sound and detailed and robust review from an AI model?
Yeah, I think so. I really believe that this will be an important part of the future, right? I think ultimately there will be human judgment. I think Teresa brought up the issue of, you don't own this manuscript, you can't upload it into Claude and Chat GPT. I think that's a short-term technological problem, right? I think that probably we are going to be running AIs that are pretty good locally in the near future, right? So I just bought I think a $6,000 Apple Studio computer that I think could probably run a local LLM model without sending anything off that computer, that could probably do pretty good peer review. I don't know. I haven't set it up yet, right? And if it can't, I think, just give it a year, give it 2 years, right? So I think that copyright issue will be off the table. And once that copyright issue is off the table and these things are being run locally, then you have to confront the real problem head on, which I think we've all been embarrassed to confront, which is that most of the time the LLM is actually going to do a better job than most peer reviewers. And that being the case, right, it feels totally like we're trying to still manufacture cloth by hand when the Industrial Revolution is coming and looms and mechanical looms are here, and I think in the end we just have to start working now to figure out, well, okay, if we're going to do it with LLMs, right, how do we want to do it? What's the best way to do it? How are we to do it in such a way where it's going to be acceptable to authors and trusted by readers?
Excellent. I want to turn actually over to Teresa and ask with regards to as an author, obviously when you get back these reviews from the reviewers of the journal, would you prefer a really sound, solid 2-page review from an AI model versus kind of weak review from a human?
That's a trick question, and we all know what I have to answer to that. Um,
Yeah, just answer it in public in front of the entire audience.
I always choose human. No, I think because I can use AI myself, I would probably put at least some parts of my paper on a AI model and say critically review my paper before submitting it. And so that's probably you or Alex has a much better AI model that I will ever own. But still, I think that the additional value is also like a person who has been there and say, look, they looked at this 15 years ago, it didn't go well because of this, or there's no clinical impact on what you're actually asking. And so maybe sometimes it's just you get an answer like, look at this paper, full stop, and then okay, I'm sorry, I submit or I send you this earlier. And that's probably worth more than the every single aspect. So I hope I got through with this answer.
You did very well. Rene, as a future editor-in-chief, as you hear these comments, these thoughts, what's going through your mind?
Okay, first, I don't want to create any controversy, but now we are witnessing the natural history of a tool, of a very valuable tool. And now we are discussing about if AI use should be disclosed. Probably in 5 years, the question will be, why didn't you use AI? You need to admit that the manuscript was created and written by the aid of AI because the quality will increase. So we need to wait because we are just starting discussing all these things. As next editor-in-chief, I'm aware of everybody is using artificial intelligence for polishing the manuscript. And before submission, I think all of us in this panel have used artificial intelligence for having a pure and clear and almost perfect final version of our manuscript. Rather than be afraid of artificial intelligence, we need to create ways to embrace it wisely in order to helping us to have better science and to have better manuscript. Not to give artificial intelligence the control, but under supervision, I think is a great tool. Even these slides we are using, Pedro, I think those slides weren't done by you.
I was going to say that at the end. But you
sorry.
You already advanced the confession.
So we need to find the right place for artificial intelligence because this is just unstoppable and unavoidable.
Absolutely. So we're coming to our last 10-15 minutes. So this is one of the last points that I want to talk about with regards to the future of publishing with some time frame. So where are we now? Personalized manuscripts and summaries, yes. AI generated graphical abstracts, as Tere was mentioning. Soon, video manuscripts, voice manuscripts, real-time manuscript critique. It's already available now. I don't think 5 years from now or soon, AI created hypotheses, protocols, and AI reviewers as well. So wanted to just touch upon a few of these questions. But I do want to give time for the questions from the audience. So as we look at some of the questions that were submitted, first one, Gabriel Levine from Montreal, he's saying, as editors and editors-in-chief, how flammable do you consider manuscripts that evaluate or discuss the use of generative AI in medicine and scientific publishing? On one hand, these papers have the potential to be highly cited because they address a rapidly evolving and widely discussed topic. On the other hand, they can be controversial. As Behrouz mentioned, there may be concerns about reputational risk or even potential friction with publishers. How do you balance the potential scientific impact and the citation value of these manuscripts against the possible editorial or publisher-related risk when making publication decisions? Niandou, you wanna take that?
Yeah, of course I can. It's very complicated. I do have at least one editorial board, the editor-in-chief and his team, who have been insisting over the last 2 years because they want to conduct an AI-based analysis of the manuscripts. And they are convinced, like most people here, that with AI we can do better job. So what they are asking is to have access to the manuscript submitted to the journal, like take, in the case of IJGC, the 2,000 manuscripts per year, and see how the reviewers answered R0, R1, R2, R3, and then give it to a local LLM protected, like the one Alex is planning to use, and see whether the AI helps doing better. And it will probably do, since in the comments I see many people saying that the LLMs can also learn from us and do just the way we do and a little better because they collect data. I've been saying no because this is the policy of Elsevier and I'm just an agent. And but they kept insisting, and they cite many researchers who are already doing such works that gain many citations. So there's a big dilemma here, and I don't know how to resolve it yet. Our policy is to say no because maybe I have to explain why we are saying no. For the 2,000 manuscripts that are submitted to IJGC, for instance, the authors never gave the authorization for us to reuse it in public LLMs. So we can't do it. This would be a violation of their rights. And Anthropic and other major companies are having trials for this reason. So it's complicated.
Excellent. So, Alex, I'll turn to you for this next question. Ana Conde, she's asking, I would like to ask if you share an initial draft with an AI system and ask for confidentiality, can we be sure that an AI will not learn that information as factual and later share it with other users?
Yeah, I mean, so I don't, so I get, so first of all, I'll say I do not write anything anymore that I don't share with an AI to get feedback, right? If I'm working on a grant, if I'm working on a paper, if I'm writing an email that is an email I care about, I usually ask an AI for feedback, right? So, and I just do that because I think it helps me. Now, I don't worry too much about how what I asked AIs is going to impact the AIs in the future. You know, there are AI engineers making, $40 million a year whose job it is to worry about that. And so I guess I just don't worry about feeding non-factual information into the AIs and worrying that they'll regurgitate it later. I think it is more sophisticated than that.
Excellent. So,
No.
another question, Mauricio. Oh, sorry, Niandou, you were going to say?
Yeah, very quickly, I would like to add that many major players in the domain have decided to not ask permission to use the data we are putting online. Elsevier and other groups are having a trial with Meta and Facebook because they decided to not ask authorization to use the data. So there is no more question about that. Everything we're putting online is already probably being used.
Excellent. Yeah, I love the comment here at the end. Is back to what Rene was saying. The next webinar will be, did you use human effort in this manuscript? Please declare if any human participated in this study. Um, Now, let me go back to some of these questions. You talked a little bit about bias, and I'm sorry, I'm just going to jump to some of these questions as I know that we have touched upon some of these, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. Alex, can AI worsen publication bias?
I mean, so I think that usually when we talk about publication bias, what we're talking about are things like the fact that there is no interest in, for example, negative studies, right? Positive studies are perceived better than negative studies, and so the literature often reflects more, is biased towards positive studies. Or also, publication bias reflects the fact that people may be more interested in some topics rather than other topics, as opposed to saying that all topics are valuable and really we should be evaluating manuscripts on quality. So I think, can AI amplify this? I think AI is a tool that's built on human language, and so it'll amplify whatever people amplify. So whatever people are saying is interesting, that's what AI will say is interesting. So I think absolutely that's the case, and I think it's not going to solve the problem. Certainly, it's not going to solve the problem of publication bias for us.
Excellent. So as we come to a close, I would like to just kind of do a rapid fire closure to the webinar, and I'd love to hear from each of the panelists the answer to this question. For you personally, what has AI improved in your scientific writing or reviewing process? Or if you want to share in your personal life, what has AI improved? I'll start with Rene.
Sparing time. I save a lot of time using artificial intelligence for tasks that can be delegated.
Excellent. Behrouz?
I would say AI has given me the ability to have a 24/7 expert colleague that I can talk to back and forth, discuss issues and problems with, and is always on call.
It's always on top. Teresa?
I would say I brainstorm more frequently, like discussing. If I hear something, I say, okay, and then 10 minutes just on off and see, okay, that's worth something I want to get into, like old school or not.
Excellent. Niandou?
I would say efficiency really helps gain time.
Alex?
It has changed my life in the realm of complex sample size calculations. So I often am a person that people go to and they're like, hey, I'll calculate the sample size for this. And sometimes it's very easy, but sometimes we're working on studies where there is like no there's no formula and you have to do it by simulation. And I used to write little programs to do these simulations, and it would take me hours to write these little simulations. And I can now ask Claude to do it for me. He does a better job and a more efficient job than I used to do. And it takes him, it takes me 5 minutes to prompt him, and it takes him 20 minutes to run. And it's just been a game changer.
Excellent. So along those same lines, as the last question is, what do you wish AI do that it doesn't do now? And what is one thing that you in the future would love to see it doing for you? Rene?
To give me research ideas.
To help you build projects. Okay. Behrouz?
What would I want AI for me to do in the future?
Yeah, something that it cannot do now, but you say, I wish it did this.
I wish it could go into databases and extract any data, and I can basically just talk to it, like the way I would talk to, any kind of, teammate on my research team to say, hey, let's get the data for and address this scientific question. That would be a powerful AI model.
Tere?
Oh, I was just saying something super easy, like doing my paperwork at Clinical Works.
Excellent. To be a support assistant in the operating room in the clinic. Excellent. Niandou?
Thank you. I will speak as a publisher, so I wish it could have a kind of moral firewall that would push it to not accept when I ask my AI to write a complete article that could be accepted in IJGC.
Excellent. Niandou, I thought you were going to say, I wish I had a tool that would tell me with 100% accuracy which of you actually used AI.
Yeah, I should have said that.
Alex?
I wish that it would fold my laundry and put it away.
Clean up after you after dinner.
That's coming.
Exactly.
They're making robots like that.
I hope so. Can't wait.
Well, we come to the end of the hour. I want to thank you so much, each and every one of you. You have provided valuable information on this topic. Thank you for sharing your expertise. Thank you for your honesty and your transparency. And again, I'm really excited about this topic. I look forward to continuing to expand on these discussions. I want to thank everyone who took time out of their day to sign up for this webinar. And once again, all of you for supporting this journal. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Thank
Pedro.
you all.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Pedro.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, everyone.
Bye.